Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, we've only got 7 calls. This may be a short one. I don't really know. We'll see how it goes. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We got Garrett from Southern Illinois.
Hey, Pack Daddy, it's Garrett from Southern Illinois.
Yo.
I have some combine questions, just real quick to snap off. One, if there was going to be a different combine skill inserted that you could test, what would it be and why? And if there was going to be one of the combine tests that you could eliminate, what would it be and why? I understand why they do these tests. I think a lot of it now is just teams get an opportunity to meet the player in person and get some, unbiased testing scores that you normally would think that college would kind of artificially boost for a player. So I understand that part of it, but it has always been interesting and exciting to see these guys running the 40. Seeing what their verts are, seeing what their actual measurables are. But, I just think the NFL does kind of need to evolve a little bit when it comes to these things. And maybe you have some ideas of what could be implemented that would be better. So just wondering what your thoughts are. I'm out.
It's a good question. I know the one that is usually dismissed as being the most useless is the bench. I would struggle to get rid of it, though, because it's kind of cool, especially for the big boys, just to see what they can do. Can't get rid of the 40. That's iconic. Oh, boy. I would lean almost toward either the broad jump or the shuttle. I could just say the 60-yard shuttle because nobody ever does it. That would be kind of the cheating answer. But if I can't do that, only because I feel like, I don't want to say they're redundant, but you've got 2 explosion tests and 2 agility tests, and I feel like the vert and the 3-cone are, if you had to pick one of each, those would be the 2. And I would probably, between the broad jump and the short shuttle, go with the short shuttle getting rid of. Only because I just feel like the broad jump has a little bit more utility and showcases a little bit more and different than what I'm trying to really think here. I'm trying to, we've gone through all of these tests. I'm just trying to think without going back and actually digging into it, how many times I've heard, boy, oh boy, the short shuttle really highlights this, that, or the other. And it's the same for the broad jump. I mean, the vert, for example, I think is big for edge. So is 3-cone. 3-cone is more known to be an edge thing, based on just kind of like common sense. It showcases what they do. I think it was the one of the data things that actually showcased the vert as being a big one for the unexpected points guy. I think was big on that. Oh, Gunnar Helm sprained his ankle before his first attempt of the 40. That could certainly explain his terrible showing. But if I were to add one, I mean, again, I could get cheap with it and say, broadcast the interviews. That would be my favorite thing if they could do it, but that's not really an athletic test. Similarly with like cognitive testing, although, it's not, nobody wants to watch them do like an IQ test, but it would be cool if they had. Remember the big controversy? What was it? The C2 or some stupid thing, but it was more about reaction time. I think it would be cool if they had something like that. Somebody had called in and referenced a show that was on a while ago. I forget what it was called. It's like Sports Science or something like that, and they had all kinds of cool stuff. Now, that was when Ray Lewis ran through a door, but they also had one that tested, because they had, boxer, karate, master, ninjutsu, all this different stuff to kind of test. Obviously people really specialize in their certain areas, and there was one that had to do with reaction time, and I think it was like the karate guy or something like that did really, really well. They all were well above like what the average person would be able to do baseball. Phenomenal at that. That might even been number one, just because, their ability to see a pitch and immediately be able to process what's coming at me and where it's going to end up is really incredible. But you think about it, your reaction time and how you implement the test matters. Obviously, the people that did that test did a terrible job. And it turns out the leak numbers weren't the real numbers, but either way, the reputation was so terrible that, as far as I know, they're just gone. Either that or teams are using it and absolutely not talking about it anymore. But something like that would be kind of cool, because obviously the ability to process rapidly is important for every single position. Quarterbacks have to be able to read and react shockingly fast. Receivers have to be able to turn their head and immediately react. And there's a little bit of that with the gauntlet, but not really. Receivers do work on that, sort of the turn and catch drill. It would just kind of be neat if there was one standardized mental processing drill. They have those things where the little things, I don't know, sticks or whatever will drop and you got to catch them. I think all football players would ace that, is the only reason I wouldn't bring that up. Although we saw football players try and fail. Point is, something like that, and something that would actually give you a metric of how fast your reaction time is. It could even be like the one that they had when a light comes up, you touch it, and it just kind of can show to a fraction of a second how fast you can process things. Just something like that I think would be pretty cool. If for no other reason, I'd like to see if there is actually any utility to something like that. So I guess off the cuff, that's what I would say. And as far as getting rid of, bench is probably the first one you should get rid of, but I don't want to. 60-yard shuttle would, the long shuttle would be the next most obvious, because nobody ever does it anyway. If I couldn't do those, and if I just went off of, utility / nobody cares, probably the 20-yard shuttle, the short shuttle would be the one I'd get rid of.
Hey, Ryan, it's Drew from Green Bay.
Hey.
Just wanted to talk about the Combine. I was really happy with how the defensive tackles turned out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of them really, killed it where now we don't have a chance at them.
Yeah.
But, none of them,
nobody flopped,
or very few of them really tanked.
Yeah.
Where,
I agree.
oh, now we can't have, Harmon on our board because he was just so bad or something like that. I thought...
it's funny because on tomorrow's show, I kind of go through some of the winners and losers. I can't really remember any defensive tackles being on it, which goes exactly to your point, except for Harmon. And Harmon really only was on there because of his interviews. He did well, but it wasn't like he blew it out of the water. It was more so, I think it was Harmon. The interviews were so good, that kind of maybe bumped him up a little bit.
Even, CJ West was a guy who was
Yep.
He was a mid-round guy, I think, and fourth rounder or something. And just in case we don't get, one of the first rounders, he really just knocked it out of the park.
Yes.
And then you have a Nebraska kid, I forgot his name, but he absolutely destroyed it. I was really worried about Jaire Alexander.
Losing you a little bit here.
Yeah, he was splitting teams.
All right, let me pause him. I'll go through it myself and see if he starts to come in a little bit here. All right, most of it is pretty rough. I think at the end here it gets a little bit better.
And it's just nice that we don't have to necessarily reach. We have a little flexibility. Although I think we need a stud defensive tackle, so we should try to get the stud. The third round guy isn't going to be a stud probably. So, but at least there's someone so that we don't go absolutely bare if we miss out. But anyways, are there any guys that popped out to you, even at linebacker or whatever? All right, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody has blown this thing so far out of the water aside from the safety that I'm not super interested in. There's, the corner out of Hairston, out of Kentucky, but even that, really undersized. PFF, when you look at that, it's very iffy for different reasons. I think I'm getting them all confused now, but I believe he was injured because, was it a broken leg or was it the shoulder? I can't remember which one's which. We'll find out tomorrow because I talk about it on tomorrow. We do a little mock draft at the end. It's not a spoiler. I'm not saying I picked him, but we talk about him. So yeah, there's really nobody, and you even got the edge rusher, Pierce, that blew it out of the water, but the rest of the athletics were kind of iffy, and there's some off-the-field concerns, which doesn't put him out of reach either way. You know, you could borderline say he's off our board, but not really. Like I said, it's similar to Wyatt, who we picked, that actually could end up making him fall into our lap if we're interested in him. You could argue there's a couple other defensive tackles that might be out of our reach because of it, but I think you could make a case for more of them falling into our lap than out of our lap. So, for example, see our edge guys here, Jalen Walker, I think there's maybe more concern than anything being so undersized. He's currently consensus 11. I could see a case where he could fall. Mike Green, similarly. Sounds like there's more concern than anything else, being a small school guy, the hamstring injury. I forget exactly all the different details that we went over, either this morning or tomorrow. I don't remember. But, yeah, if anything, he probably falls. Same with James Pierce at 16. Malachi Starks, the safety, didn't show out super well. Josh Simmons, they're talking about, he's at 18 potentially being. I think if anybody really boosted their stock upward that was kind of close to us, it would be Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Came in a little bit leaner, really did very well testing-wise. But again, he's like further down than everybody else. He's expected to go after Pierce, Green, Michael Williams, and Jalen Walker. So it really is just I've been saying it the entire time, this edge rush group, I have no idea what's going to happen. I mean, Jalen Walker could go unbelievably early if people just continue to see him as the next Micah Parsons, or he could just fall because he's just an undersized dude. Mike Green could be a top 10 guy, or he could fall beyond the Packers. Same with James Pierce. He could go super early because he's really athletic and fast, and he could be powerful, or he could fall out of the first round if people just don't really trust him. Shamar Stewart could end up being the first of this group to go. Michael Williams, I haven't noticed anything necessarily good or bad, but Shamar Stewart could be the first one to go, or maybe he just goes after these guys because they really do check all the boxes. I don't know. And then as far as, defensive tackle, I think, it's a good point as far as wanting to get him maybe in the first round. I would be, at this point, I want to go back and look at it again, especially after seeing the combine stuff, but at this point, Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant, I like them both. Nolan is sort of my dude right now, but Kenneth Grant, I see the vision, certainly, with the big program, the shocking athleticism for his size, the acknowledgement that he needs to continue to grow. Jaire Alexander is one that maybe could be out of range. It's really just a question of his athleticism, and part of the reason I say that is because you're seeing Siobhan Revel and Benjamin Morrison fall. I mean, Morrison was... both of these guys were right at about 23, and they've both fallen out of the first round as far as the consensus board is concerned. And with Azaria Thomas also in the second round, you got Jaire Alexander, who killed it at the combine athletically. He's killing it in the interviews. And if really he's the only first-round guy outside of, the top 10 right now, I think there's going to be a war over him. That would be my concern with him. And then you got Matthew Golden, who is kind of back of the first, but you look at him as a guy that's a pretty refined route runner that just ran a 4.3, I think a 4.30. I mean, I'm starting to see some of these guys really might go quite a bit earlier, whereas Walter Nolan has got some question marks on him. Josh Simmons has questions. Malachi Starks has questions. James Pierce has questions. Mike Green has questions. I wonder if you see guys like Emeka Ibuka, who are really high character guys, especially with Ohio State receivers knocking it out of the park. Jaire Alexander maybe going earlier. Matthew Golden maybe going earlier. Maybe even Nick Scorton, who I really like, going earlier. I just would not be surprised. The guys after 23, I think really showed out and improved themselves. The guys before 23, I think are some question mark. All that really is doing is pulling them right into the center. It's pulling them all right to 23. Everybody, the gravitational pull is at 23, and it's just a question of how this is all going to get sorted out. And I love that. I really love that right now I have no idea. Even the fact that the number one pick, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, it's kind of coming into focus that Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward, there's a pretty big gap. It seems like Cam Ward is the main dude. It's just a question of, is Tennessee going to take Cam Ward? Are they going to trade the spot? Are they going to draft Abdul Carter? Could they possibly draft Travis Hunter? I don't know. And we still have free agency. We still have trades to go on to kind of help clarify this stuff. But it is so far very wide open, and I don't want it to start to come into focus because that's when it gets boring. I love that I have no idea what the heck is going on. I love that I'm looking at this pool of guys, and there's some of them I'm thinking, okay, they're not getting to us. I think there's questions about whether Mason Graham goes in the top 5, but he's not going to fall to us. Shedeur Sanders, obviously. Cam Ward, obviously. I think I've given up on Teteroa McMillan making it. There's just too many things that don't make sense. Even if some people don't like him, again, I don't think he gets past Dallas. Ashton Genty, there's no way. Will Johnson, I don't see any reason right now why he would. Tyler Warren, I don't think would fall. Michael Williams, I don't think would fall. Pretty much everybody else, though. Probably not Kelvin Banks, but Jalen Walker, Mike Green, Armand Membo, James Pierce, Malachi Starks, Josh Simmons, Shamar Stewart, probably not, but Walter Nolan, Tyler Booker, the guard, even though, there's rumors that I think it was the Colts are super into him. I mean, it's wide open. And then we know the Packers, we're looking at all these guys, and we know that they like to take guys that are consensus 40 overall. So look at who that puts on the board. You got, Scorton, Harmon, Zabel, Revel, Donovan Jackson, interior guy out of Ohio State, Benjamin Morrison, the cornerback, Azaria Thomas, the corner, Jack Sawyer, the edge, Ezukaru, the edge, Tyleek Williams, defensive tackle, Ursi, the tackle, Darius Alexander out of Toledo, the defensive tackle, Uman Malin, who I really like out of Mississippi at 47, Cam Williams at 48, Trey Harris, the wide receiver, JT Tuimalau at 50. Landon Jackson at 51 had a pretty good combine. I mean, I'm surprised there isn't movement already. I'm thinking these guys are going to start moving pretty quick here. Some of these guys moving up and some of the other ones maybe sliding down. But, yeah, it's all pretty wide open, and I like that. All right, why don't we take a break? We got 3 from TJ in Alabama. We'll take our final break and then grab 2 from Uncle Rico, and we'll call it a day. Take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama.
Yo.
Catching up on all the stuff. I'm curious, really from anybody, but also yourself, and you've kind of already shared it, but, what would be the reasonably aggressive possible, Packer off-season main moves type of stuff? And, to be honest with you, I don't see Max Crosby coming to Green Bay. I don't see Max Crosby leaving L.A. I think Las Vegas. I think Las Vegas wants to get Stafford and keep Max Crosby, and hell, maybe even trade for Jaire so that you keep Max, you trade for Jaire, you bring in Matthew Stafford. What the hell is it's probably the thing. So I don't see that happening. I don't see Myles Garrett happening because I think Cleveland's going to Cleveland that thing up completely, being that Garrett doesn't want to play for him, and his trade value right now would be through the roof before anybody signs any free agents, before the draft, before this. Cleveland can probably get a massive haul for Myles Garrett, but they'll probably Cleveland this thing up and wait until it's too late and this, that, and the other thing, and then, we'll see how that goes. So, long-winded way, back to the original topic of what would a aggressively reasonable, possible, but really, really good offseason look like? I'm thinking, one, we trade for DK Metcalf, but don't give up the first-round pick, but, get DK from Seattle. In the free agency, sign Paulson Adebo and probably like a Malcolm Kuntz type of thing, because I would love Mac, but I just don't know if I see that. But Malcolm Kuntz, clearly not at Mac's level, but was rising, still 27 years old. So we signed Paulson Adebo and Malcolm Kuntz in free agency, trade for DK Metcalf. In the draft is where we hit the tackle, the defensive tackle, and refortify the offensive line. So, cornerback depth, defensive line and offensive line in the draft. That's what I'm thinking. So what do you got? What would be your, and anybody else's that's any of the other people that are listening to the pod, what's your reasonably, the off season that could possibly happen in our dreams, but not getting crazy and having, Max Crosby and Myles Garrett both be signed by the Packers kind of stuff. All right, that's it. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Yeah, well, DJ Reed just was added to that equation. There was talk about the Packers possibly being interested in him. I would love that at corner. I think if you were to draw up, it's tough to say perfect, but man, I if we're gonna have, I'm torn. First of all, let's just say and I don't even know if Max Crosby's my guy, but so they didn't get Stafford, right? That fell through. So I'm wondering if you're the the Raiders, you're trying to raise your profile. Losing Max Crosby is not your best option. I'm just wondering, though, what are you going to do? Because putting yourself on the map is probably not really a thing. I guess you could really try to be aggressive to go up and get a quarterback, or possibly even have Shadur Sanders fall into your lap and grab him. And, again, you kind of just pull the Detroit or the Dallas Cowboys move of let's get all the publicity. Let's get the Hollywood guy in here with the chain and the swagger, and all the cameras will be on Vegas. And, you get like Mr. Hollywood in Vegas. You know what I mean? He's built for this kind of a scene, and we raise our profile. We have some fun. We go out and get aggressive. All that stuff. On the other hand, it's possible perhaps you kind of realize that this isn't going to happen, and you start to do kind of a rebuildy thing where you do lose Max Crosby, especially if he just genuinely doesn't want to be there. Leaving that aside, though, give me DJ Reed, the corner. DK makes a lot of sense. Devontae's the more fun option. DK is the younger guy that can do more physically. Devontae's freaking Devontae, though, man. Getting the band back together gets me so jacked up. So, again, DK might be the right thing, but Devontae's going to be cheaper, and I don't know how much worse he's going to be than DK Metcalf, just in terms of, raw athletic ability. You love having his hands out there for Jordan to be able to help him with that. He's going to help the boys as far as doing things the right way in preparation and all that. That was always a big thing for him. He loves Jordan, no doubt about it. They've got already a little bit of chemistry. They've worked together. DJ Reed, give me Devontae, cheaper than DK, so we're not, like you said, not getting crazy. And then we have to get an edge. Let's just say Max is not an option. And I don't know that we would be top of the order for Myles Garrett. I really would like Khalil Mack. The negative of this trio is that really only one guy is a younger long-term guy. But you've got a couple other guys where you're like, why couldn't it be 2-3 years? Maybe they can pull it off. Maybe they can do that. Devontae might have 3 years left in him. Khalil might have 3 years left in him. Plus, just how freaking cool is that? Khalil Mack, one of the greatest to do it. Former Chicago Bear, just like the Julius Peppers thing, but probably better. Elite pass rusher. And it kind of brings that energy that you want here. The guys that just know how to do things the right way. And bringing in sort of a leadership so that it takes it off the shoulders of the young guys. Xavier McKinney is that dude. And he can be that leader. He is that guy. He knows how to do things. Same with Josh Jacobs. They know how to do this. They know how to handle business. But you can kind of turn it over to the older guys. Turn it over to the OGs that can be the actual leaders, and they can kind of take a step back and just be the guys that do things right. And they can maybe be the leaders in their own room. Let DJ Reed and Xavier McKinney be those guys for the DBs. Let Devontae be that for the receivers, and for Josh Jacobs to be that dude for the backs, and for Khalil to be that guy for the defensive line. And, Khalil and Kenny. That's a fun crew, man. With Halfley and the boys getting violent, getting aggressive. Just seeing Devontae out there making Devontae plays. I just want to watch it. Devontae and Josh Jacobs, and it's funny because that's already been a thing, but with a more competent play caller and a better quarterback and just a scary freaking defense. That doesn't even include whatever we do in the draft. Just saying, boys. I can see it. I'm fine with DK, but Devontae is just fun, and Khalil's fun, and they're probably the cheaper options. And really, the biggest swing here is going to be DJ Reed, and that's that other young stud. I don't know. I mean, for me, that's the one for me is DJ Reed, man. But they said there aren't a ton of those. And I don't even remember what his age is. I don't think he's super young, but for me, that right now is kind of the dream with plenty of pass rush. Myles Garrett obviously is a slam dunk. Max Crosby, I'm pretty well all in on. Khalil Mack would be great because I think there's cost benefit is through the roof. I think he's going to be cheaper than what he's worth. And Devontae probably relatively cheap. And by the way, I don't think Devontae happens. I don't think the Packers and Devontae are going to make that work. I'm just telling you what would make me the happiest in 2025. What would be the coolest crew that we can assemble for the Green Bay Packers? Kind of my dream right now. Just realized I did the wrong intro. TJ.
Hey, Ryan, TJ from Alabama. Listening to the commentary on a couple different things, and just throw my 2 cents into it, or my 1 cent probably into it. So first one, the tush push. I think you've hacked at it pretty good, and as a lot of other people. Yes, I would have preferred not to be the team that wanted to take physicality out of the game, kind of thing. I think that's a little embarrassing. Also, right after we lost to Philadelphia twice this season.
Yeah,
I don't like the
that
look.
Doesn't look good.
And I definitely don't like the rationale we provided as far as why we would like the tush push banned. I think you brought it up, and I think you brought it up with Mark Schlereth.
Yeah.
And if we're going to do one, I don't want to do it at all as far as look to ban it. But if we were going to do it, then I think it was Mark Schlereth that you mentioned that seemed to have the only logical thing.
I agree.
That I would have been okay with coming out of the gate saying, hey, it's a competitive disadvantage because the defense can't do the same thing. If the defense lined up, you have the defensive tackles and you take another couple big-bodied defensive tackles and you put it right behind, the nose and the 3-tech, and you have a couple layers of people pushing the defensive line against the offensive line. You can't do that because that would be an illegal penalty. So it's like, okay, that one, all right, I can get behind the concept of it is a disadvantage because the offense can push at multiple layers, but the defense could not do the same thing, just like the special teams. So
yeah.
That would have been the argument that I could have lived with, but preferred not to do it at all. And then the Jaire thing is the second thing. And the Packers are in no urgency, and Good has ice water in his veins anyway. Even if there was a deadline like the Rodgers thing, Gutekunst still just kind of sits back and lets it come to him.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think he's going to let this come to him as well. Now, Jaire does not have a tremendous amount of trade value. Injured, semi-expensive, but the Packers are in no rush, and I don't think Gute's in any rush. Let the things play out. There's plenty of teams that need cornerbacks. Jaire is a very talented cornerback. If you don't get what you want in free agency, if you don't get what you want in the draft, hell, let's wait. And in addition to that, right this moment, teams have money. They have capital. They have all this stuff. So like Jaire, if we try to trade Jaire right this moment, maybe I'm going to have to call back. Sorry.
It's all right. Part 2, here we go. Whoop, nope, here we go.
All right, part 2. So Jaire also could, like, if we tried to trade him now to Tampa Bay or whoever, pick a team that he didn't want to go to, I'm sure Jaire would rather be cut right this moment, where all the teams are available to bid on him. He can kind of bid his services. A lot of teams still need cornerbacks. Jaire would want to be traded now, and in theory, Jaire being a little bit of Jaire, we say, hey, we got our best deal, and we're trading you to Tennessee. Whatever, pick a team, doesn't matter. And Jaire says, I don't want to go to that team, so I'm going to raise a little bit of a hissy fit. The team's not going to trade for me, and I just want to be cut. Well, the Packers, they could just let it play out, because I would almost guarantee that if the Packers let this thing play out until September, where everybody's got their rosters, relatively straight, set up, they've spent their money, we release Jaire in September or August, we still get the cap savings then. So it doesn't make any difference to the Packers, but it sure as hell makes something different to Jaire, because he ain't getting the $12, $13, $14 million offer, or highly unlikely at that point. So Jaire, you need to play ball with us a little bit too, or we'll just hold on to you.
Right.
And if we do have to ultimately cut you, we'll just do it in September, and that is not the best situation for you. So it seems like the Packers do have, don't want to use the L word, but it seems like they do have a little of it with other teams and with Jaire. Not that we're going to get a second round or a third round pick for him, but yeah, maybe there is a fourth or a fifth round pick for it, which is probably the best we could do. All right. I was just thinking that and thinking, Packers got some time with Jaire. All right. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, the beginning of this phase is where all the money is. This is when everybody's desperate, and this is when everybody's kind of in a feeding frenzy for that top guy. Once the draft happens, first of all, a lot of the movement, the free agents are already picked up, the trades are already done, and any gaps that teams had, like if they needed a corner, they're going to address that in the draft. And so now your value just went down. So if anybody's desperate, it's Jaire to get this done as soon as is possible. So, I mean, you can play hardball all you want, but, I mean, you're in serious danger of floundering and being that guy that's, mid-season still doesn't have a team. You got your dream of being cut, but you're out there waiting for somebody else to get hurt so you can have some team with Super Bowl aspirations come swoop in and try to grab you. It seems weird, but you see that every year where somebody got picked up and it's like, I didn't know they weren't on a team. That's weird. They were kind of a big thing a while ago, but haven't been for some time. You don't want to be in that position. Right now, you are the cream of the crop. You're the dude everybody wants. I know the injuries are a problem, but Jaire is a prize right now, and you want to maintain that. So I think it is in his best interest to play ball. He's obviously, and the Packers should be cool about it and say, we want to work with you and find a team that makes sense for you as well. We want to try to do best by you. And I'm sure there are options. A lot of people have talked about the Ravens. I think that makes a ton of sense. They're a defensive-minded team. They're a playoff caliber team. I think that they could have some interest in a guy like Jaire. I think that could make sense for all parties. But yeah, that is the L word, the leverage that the Packers have. And that's the leverage everybody has that's willing to do it, and that is to just not panic. Just the ability to walk away from the table. If you don't have that, you're screwed, and you're going to end up getting taken advantage of. You have to have the ability to be willing to stand up and walk away from the table and say, that's just not good enough, I'm sorry. And if that means we just hang on to Jaire for as long as we feel like it, if that means we cut him, just before the season starts on the 53 cut downs or whatever, then that's what we're going to do. But there is desperation. There's desperation on Jaire's part. There's desperation on these teams that need corners. And people want to get stuff done. And the Packers, of course, want to get it done too, because that's when you get the most compensation when everybody's panicked. That's when all this stuff happens. But if you panic and if you start trying to make something happen, that's when you're going to get caught. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back. We got a couple from Uncle Rico, and we're going to get up out of him.
Yo, Ryan, it's your Uncle Rico.
Yo.
Hey, I just had to comment on something. I've been listening to the pod here and there, trying to catch up, and a couple nights ago I was listening, and you were talking about Roger Goodell interfering, or you didn't know why the NFL would care or stick their nose in the business of guaranteed contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said that anyways, you were just commenting on that, like, why would Goodell care, and NFL should keep their nose out of that, kind of, sort of. And then you just said on the pod I'm listening to now about the Cleveland and the Deshaun Watson thing, and how his guaranteed contract has really held them hostage with their salary cap and screwed them over made it difficult for them, and so they're struggling. So I put two and two together because I'm smart like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's maybe that's it. Maybe it's a bad luck for Goodell in his tenure as the commissioner to have teams like Cleveland struggle badly because of something like that. Does that make sense? Maybe that's it. I don't know. I mean, it's and not to mention, I don't know, it maybe, I'll leave the whole rest of that and my thoughts out of that because that's just me thinking stupid. But this made sense to me. So anyways, Rico out, go Pack, go.
Yeah, and I did kind of touch on that a little bit. I just, maybe, but I guess my thought is if teams are stupid, the point that I had made regarding this, so what? Teams are stupid all the time. Let them be stupid. They're just going to learn, right? Cleveland did a thing. It was terrible for the league, and I doubt anyone's going to be doing it again. I think the conclusion that I believe I had come to on that, as far as why would this happen, is that Goodell is acting as a mouthpiece for the owners, because the owners don't want to set a precedent of this. The NFL shouldn't care if there's who cares how they spend their money? It doesn't really matter. And I mean, you could try to make a case if you wanted to for why it would matter. Perhaps it could damage the product in some kind of a way if the quarterbacks were overpaid. But I mean, why then don't do it, right? I don't know. I that's the only thing I could think is owners are very upset at the prospect of some teams getting so desperate that they're doing stupid things, and then other teams being worried that they're going to now be beholden to the stupid teams because, if they start caving because, well, the Browns are stupid and you shouldn't do it, but now if you want to compete, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And now it gets to the point where if you want a quarterback, you're going to have to offer that, and they just don't want to go down that road. Again, the NFL shouldn't care, but the teams and the owners should care. And the fact that it was coming from the NFL office, again, unless I'm missing something, which is like you said, where it just kind of degrades the product or something, it seems most like what as far as what to me makes the most sense, I would say it would have to be that obviously there is some they were found guilty of collusion. I don't know if that's exactly the word I would use definitively, but the owners don't want there to be a thing, and I don't know if they were trying to avoid collusion themselves by not directly talking to each other about, hey, we need to not do this. So they kind of used a third-party intermediary, which is the NFL off. I don't know. I don't really know. But I just, again, my whole thing is I didn't really fully understand why the NFL should care outside of speculating of them doing something nefarious. If they were just being acting in their best interest and trying to help the team or whatever. I don't know, but I will say going forward, you absolutely need to stay out of it. That's not your business.
Yo, Ryan, it's your uncle, Rico. Hey, you guys are talking about the flex scheduling? Yeah. How is that going to work? At all?
Yeah.
Like with team travel and like with anything, anybody involved with a team. Yeah, we got to work on Sunday because we got to travel to Miami and plan my life around that. And then all of a sudden it's not Sunday anymore. And then all the people who work at the stadium and the security and the vendors and the groundskeepers, and it's just, that's the most ignorant thing I've ever heard. You can't just flip the switch and have everybody's life change. These aren't robots we're dealing with here, There's ground transportation and there's parking and there's everything. It's just the most ignorant thing I've ever heard of. And for whatever they think it's going to help them make money, it's going to cost them money. Ryan's not going to, if you're any way employed in this the ongoings of the game in any way, shape, or form, they can't just expect you to be at their beck and call without paying you more. Anybody, it's insane, insanity. All right then, my 2 cents. Rico out.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not hard to understand why. I mean, you know, you make a bunch more money or whatever and try to put on a better product for TV because that's your largest audience and whatnot. But I mean, I think it just goes to priorities, right? You're really, for the sake of improving a minor inconvenience, which is, oh man, this matchup is going to suck, they're willing to sacrifice people at a major inconvenience that are the ones that are filling your stadiums and everything else. And I don't know, man. I mean, unless you have something in place, I mean, if you want to do it, fine. But I think there should be something in place as far as, you know, compensation or ticket buybacks or whatever, all the stuff we talked about. And to, as far as I know, offer absolutely nothing and basically just say, hey, read the fine print, screw you. That's just really not a great look. And I don't think it's a great long-term strategy. Again, I wish the NFL would appeal the most to the most hardcore fans, and it seems like they do the opposite. The hardcore fans that buy the jerseys, that buy the tickets, they get screwed the hardest. The, I guess, big fans, which I would put myself in, I'm not buying jerseys, I'm not going to the games, but I'm going to watch it, I'm going to obsess over it, and especially my own team would be the next most. And then the people that are appealed to the absolute most are the ones that are either casual observers or just really not very interested in football at all. Those demographics, it's their favorite demographic. They want to go to countries that don't watch football. They want to talk to people. They look at, it's kind of like when you go on YouTube and it's like 98% men. And it's like, all right, I'm going to talk to the ladies now. So why would you do that? It's like, well, because if I can get the women, as many women as I have men, I double the size of my audience. It's like, that's true. Or you alienate the people that are here and you're, instead of doubling it, you go to zero. So there's that. All right, ladies and gents, I'm out of here. You guys have a good rest of your night. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.